Well, I'm certainly back down the rabbit hole as always, and this is the Geek in Review, and this is going to be my spoiler free review of the new Matrix film Resurrection. So if you haven't seen it, you don't need to worry about anything too much. I'm not going to go into detail, this is going to be it's just some of my general thoughts. But after over a decade and ending on some pretty questionable sequels, was this film worth the wait? And the answer is yeah, I kind of think it was. It's not the perfect film, and it might not even be the best Matrix sequel, but it is certainly a worthy sequel. Now, I had huge expectations for this film because I absolutely loved The Matrix growing up. I was addicted to the message boards when the second and the third film were coming out, and there's some crazy stuff that was getting posted up there at the time, I remember. If you think all these leaks about Star Wars and things are crazy, the stuff that used to go on the message boards were absolutely insane because there was no behind the scenes, there was no leaks, there was no photos, so people could just post whatever they want. Now, spoilers for this had made their way out into the world. I had managed to ignore most of them, and I didn't even watch the sort of final TV spots, only watched the main trailers leading up to this, because I really didn't want to spoil it for myself. I wanted to see how they were going to bring this film to the big screen and this world to life after all this time, and how they were going to update the Matrix and the story and the characters for a modern audience. And I have to say, I think they pulled it off pretty well. It has all the staples that you'd expect of a Matrix film: great action, huge twists, kung fu, technology, and it goes pretty deep into a lot of things. In fact, it gets so meta at some point, it's kind of confusing, kind of you're shocked that they actually went there and said what they're going to say. But one thing that it does as well is it answers all the questions that you have when you go in, and it answers a lot of questions that fans have had about the Matrix over the last 2 decades as well, about what goes on in this world, what happened next, and how certain things work. Basically, every question that you want, you get answers to it, and I have to say it's pretty damn satisfying. If you split this film up into 3 acts, I'd say basically the first act is you're just like, what is going on? You're trying to pick everything up and work out exactly, what exactly is going on in this world. And then the second act is where you get all the answers and the exposition. And the third act is just sort of relentless action. Now, I do think the action in this, especially the third act, was a little bit too heavy. I can't go into too much detail on this, but I did think it did go on a little bit long and it was a little bit excessive. And the action in this, while it's good, it's not Matrix good. They weren't really doing anything that we haven't seen before, and maybe this film is a victim of the first film's success because it's so iconic and it was so well done and put together that, yeah, the fight sequences in the sequel Reloaded were good, but then after that, where do you kind of go? And I think they have sort of reached the wall of creativity when it comes to the fights in the Matrix films. Not to say that it's not good, it's just not amazing. And of course, Keanu Reeves is back, and he's back at his best Neo. He's very much reminiscent of where the character was in the first one. And yeah, I feel totally connected to this character again. Obviously, he doesn't really know what's going on for a good portion of the film, so in that respect, again, it's like the first one where you're seeing things and discovering things at the same speed that he does. But Carrie-Anne Moss isn't in it as much as I thought she was going to be, but her character does get a lot of development. But one of the stars of this is Jessica Henwick, who is kind of the new or the third lead in this. She's our introduction into this world in the film. She plays a captain in one of the human hover ships, and I've seen her in a few things before, but this is probably her best role. I'll need to go back and watch it again to pick up a lot more details, but she certainly does seem key to this world if they are going to make any sequels. And speaking of the world building in this film is a lot better than we got in the second and the third Matrix films. We see a lot more, things are explained a lot more. In Zion, they never really explained too much, it was just this kind of weird party city. And we see some interesting developments both on the technology side of the real world with humans and what happens in the Matrix as well. If you think about the Matrix and technology, think about things like bots and fake accounts. All of that sort of gets brought up and gets manifested in the Matrix. We also see some old familiar characters as well, but I can't go into too much detail on that, obviously. speaking of the Matrix, we do get to see a lot more of how it operates, and that's on several levels. They examine more meaning to it and more meaning about what it is to be human. As I said at the start, this film goes deep on a lot, and some people aren't going to like that, and some people are going to love it. It doesn't feel like it's too fan servicey, but it does rely a little bit too much on flashbacks to the first film and even the second and the third film. And some of the scenes that are in this one are exactly shot for shot. You know, when Neo is on the hover ship and he's managed to escape the Matrix, the shot of him waking up and then getting introduced to the crew and the explanation about what's going on is pretty much shot for shot of the first one. But that's not a complaint. This film is just dripping with nostalgia, and it knows it, and it even makes you aware of it. And it's the journey, and it's the explanation, and it's the destination that are all great in this film. The only thing that I would say lets it down is really the action, because one of the talking points of The Matrix was the action when you first seen it, and all the talking points in this film are going to be about the dialogue and the story rather than the kung fu, which I think is a bit of a shame. But again, I don't know where they were really going to go with this after they went where they had in the second and the third films. And I think a lot of the effects didn't really fit in either. It did feel, I don't know, it was a little bit too much CGI. The Matrix always felt like this sort of dark world, and this didn't really have that presence. It didn't really have the green or the blue tint that we got in the previous films as well. But they do sort of explain why things are different in this world now. But again, I can't get into too much detail. But I would advise you, if you do get the opportunity, go and check out this film if you can. I know not everywhere is open at the moment, and we're in some areas might be going into lockdown. But if you have seen this film, let me know what you think in the comments below, or you can follow me on Twitter at Geeks Reviews. Did this live up to your expectations, or did it live up to any of the theories that you had about what might be going on in the Matrix world? My name's Al, thanks for watching, and if you've made it this far, please leave a like on the video and subscribe as well, it would mean so much. I'm going to post my spoiler review sometime tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that and make sure that you don't miss it.